Shalom, everybody. Shalom, friends. Hope you're doing well. Shavua Tov. Hope Shabbat was great and all the good things that we always like to say about Shabbat. And here we are, a new week. The Torah portion of Vayechi, which is the last Torah portion of the book of Genesis, of Bereshit. We'll talk about that on Thursday. But we know that the Torah portion gives shape to the entire week spiritually. So today's the first day of the week. So we're already starting to feel it. And we'll talk about it more obviously in depth later in the week. This is a class I feel is really important, really important. And I gave the title of this class, "Why More Rabbis Are Not Vegan." And I know we talked about it here and there, like as it connects to different things that we're talking about. We've given different insights and answers, and people have asked questions, but we haven't put it all together like this in one class to like go through the list one after the other. Okay, and so I'm really excited about this. As I was putting it together, I'm like, oh yeah, there's like it's really important. It's really important. And so while I use the word rabbis in the title, okay, it really could be why are more Jews not vegan? Specifically for me, coming from the Orthodox Jewish world, why are more Orthodox Jews not vegan? Right? But specifically rabbis, I think really kind of like says a lot because we look at rabbis as our community leaders, as our spiritual guides. And let's just say it right away off the bat, just because they're not vegan doesn't mean they're not amazing leaders and great people and super helpful and doing incredible things for the Jewish people. They are, okay? I do believe, and I think you would agree with me, that if they were also vegan, then even more goodness would come out of who they are and what they do. Okay, but of course, non-vegan rabbis are doing tremendous and great things in their communities, in their work, in the Jewish world for the Jewish people. So just want to say that right away. Okay, but it is a question, right? It's a question that I get, from time to time. It's a question we brought up here in the vegan shul in our classes. If there's so much support in Judaism for being vegan today, why are more Jews in general and rabbis specifically not vegan? Okay, so I have a list of a bunch of things that we're going to go through right now. And maybe other people will bring up other things or ask questions that will inspire other things to come up. But I've come up with almost 10 different answers to that question. Okay, so feel free to take notes. Know that this is being recorded. I'll be sending it out to everyone, but whatever works for you, right? So here we go. Okay, in no specific order. Okay, I want to share a few different responses to this question. Why more rabbis are not vegan? Okay. Ein chadash mitachat hashemesh, right? There's nothing new in the world. Okay, that's a concept in Judaism that comes from Tanakh, that comes from the Hebrew Bible. This idea that there's nothing new in the world, right? Whatever has been already been before, right? And what has already been is or will be. And it's this idea of newness can sometimes feel dangerous in the Jewish world. Right? And we can understand that. If we zoom out and we look at the Jewish people's history, where we've been, what we've been through, new things have been dangerous, right? New cultures, new influences, new ways of looking at the world, new ways of living and being. To an ancient tradition that is really trying to do something in this world and accomplish something and keep that ancient tradition going, it could be scary. Something new, something different could be very scary and feel like a threat. Right, just like look at modernity, right? Look at modernity, right? Look at the Enlightenment, right? The they weren't even called the Orthodox world yet. That word was used as a response to the Enlightenment and its influence on the Jewish people. Then they had to kind of name themselves as like Orthodox as opposed to Jews who were being shaped and influenced, excuse me, and changed by the values and ideals of the Enlightenment. Okay, but the Orthodox world went very inner as a result, very inner. And that concept of like new is scary, new is dangerous, like really took hold. It's not the first time in Jewish history that's happened. Look at the story of Hanukkah, right? The Greek influence on Jewish life and the Jewish people and the Jewish homeland was very intense for some of the Jews, not all the Jews, right? Some of the Jews embraced Hellenism. Some of the Jews celebrated Hellenism. Some of the Jews mixed Hellenism and Judaism. Some of them Jews exchanged Judaism for Hellenism. But there was a segment of the Jewish society back then that was very scared about Hellenism and said, no way, we don't want any of it. Right? That eventually led to the revolt. So there is this concept, and veganism is kind of looked at as that. What is this? It's new, it's different. Who was vegan? When do we hear about veganism in the Torah? When do we hear about, as many teachings as we share here that are supportive of going vegan in our world today, we've never come across the word vegan in any of our teachings. Okay? In any of these teachings that I've shared with you, yeah, we talk about animal welfare, we talk about compassion for animals, we talk about not causing pain and suffering to animals. Rav Kook talks a lot about returning to the original way that humans ate. We talk about Adam and Eve and Garden of Eden and the first diet that lasted until Noah. We call it vegan, but it wasn't called vegan. That word doesn't appear. Okay, so veganism to a lot of people is like this new thing. It never existed before. It's this new movement. What is it? I don't know. Even outside the Jewish world, even outside the rabbinic world, people kind of sometimes have that reaction to it. Okay, but even more so in the rabbinic world, it's like, wait a minute. What is this? Is this like another religion? Are you exchanging Judaism for veganism? I've heard that from people. Maybe you have as well, that you're turning veganism into a religion. I'm not turning veganism into a religion. I have my religion already. It's called Judaism. Right? Veganism is how I live my life. It's how I eat and things, how I choose to buy certain products. It's not a religion. Right? And of course, I think that veganism and Judaism align greatly. And Judaism inspires veganism. Okay, but it's not a religion in and of itself. Okay, and I have been accused of that many times, including from friends. I'll say. So this idea of newness. So why are more rabbis not vegan? Number one, it's new. What is it? I don't know. You put on your Yiddish accent. I don't know. I never heard of such a thing. My grandparents didn't know such a thing. Why should I know of such a thing? Right? It's like no. Newness, we don't need it. We have enough old stuff. We'll just keep, schlepping it with us from generation to generation and living the same way and eating the matzah ball soup and having the gefilte fish with a little carrot on top and everything's going to be dandy. It's like, I don't know about that. Judaism is about especially in the modern world where things are rapidly changing like never before. We can't just hold on to that's how things have always been. Because we're living in a world of such newness on so many levels, in so many ways, that the world hasn't always been like this. Right? We are living drastically and radically different than just one generation before us, especially 2 generations. Go 3 generations before us, forget about it. It's like black and white TV versus color TV. It's like a completely different reality. Okay? But just to better understand why are more rabbis not vegan, this idea of newness doesn't really jive so well with Judaism, right? It's often been historically looked at as dangerous and even counter to Judaism. And let's be honest, sometimes it absolutely has. Hellenism was new. Hellenism was a danger to Judaism, absolutely. So that kind of got us used to enlightenment, let's be honest, to certain Jewish practices that did, steer a lot of Jews away from Jewish practices. So there kind of has become a tradition in Judaism of newness being dangerous and a threat from the outside. That's number one, okay? Number 2, very connected to that, is tradition, right? This is how we've always done it. This is what we do. Excuse me. This is how my parents did it. This is how my grandparents did it. This is how my great-grandparents did it. I saw my great Zadie do it, all these different things. Right? Tradition. This is how we have done it. This is how we do it, and this is how we're gonna do it. And tradition is very, very powerful in Judaism, which we've talked about, right? Brisket on Rosh Hashanah. Of course I'm gonna have a brisket on Rosh Hashanah. Right? Of course I'm gonna have chicken soup on Friday night. Don't tell me I can't, because I can. Because I know, because it's tradition. We've been doing it. Very hard to break tradition, right? And tradition is a beautiful thing. It's a gorgeous thing. Right? Most of tradition is not written in Jewish law and practice, but it's tradition and it's beautiful, and it's kind of like what we do to bring our own personal creativity and connection into our Jewish practice. But as we've said many, many times before, if it goes against Jewish laws, and you have to choose between a Jewish law and tradition, it's not even a discussion. The tradition will always lose. So if your tradition of having a brisket on Rosh Hashanah, right, is going against the Jewish Torah law of Tzar B'alei Chaim, of not causing pain and suffering to animals, sorry, got to think of a different dish. Okay? All right? But tradition. All right, we're here more to understand, why more rabbis are not vegan, less to answer the questions, but it's hard, not to answer them a little bit. But tradition is very, very important, and just how things have been done and how we'll do it. And linked to that, another response to this question, especially in the Orthodox world, right? And especially for rabbis, is like, my rabbi wasn't vegan. I'm going to be vegan. I'm going to say my rabbi was wrong for not being vegan. Who am I? Am I holier than him? Am I holier than thou? Right? And then you can say, oh, but things have changed. In his generation, it wasn't like this. Oh, but I look around. I don't see other rabbis doing it. I don't see other rabbis going vegan. Right? We have big rabbis today leading the generation. They haven't said one thing about veganism. If they did, maybe I'd go vegan, but they haven't. Right? That's a huge thing. That's a huge thing in the Jewish world in general, specifically in the Orthodox world, is like, what did your rabbi do? And you're really trying to mimic. I'm not saying that in like a belittling kind of way. I'm saying like there's a real idea and value in Judaism of being like your rabbi. Like it says to choose a rabbi, right? To be like your rabbi, be inspired be influenced in a way, because hopefully your rabbi is somebody to be influenced by, and you should look to know how to live your own life. Right, that is like the ideal kind of role of a rabbi for the rabbi's community. Okay, it doesn't mean that they're perfect, and it doesn't mean that they don't make mistakes. It doesn't mean that they're like on the level of God, obviously. But just in our human realm, they're leaders, they're spiritual leaders, they're communal leaders. So if my rabbi's not doing it, and so let's go to the congregation for a second, right? That's often used by people. They're not the rabbi, but like, I'm gonna go vegan, and like my rabbi's not vegan. I've been like listening to his classes for 20 years. He's never used the word vegan once, right? And I even heard him make a joke about vegans a few times, right? And I see what he eats on Friday night. I see what he eats at Kiddush, right? In honor of the holidays, in honor of Shabbos. So I'm going to do the same thing. That he's my model for how to be the best Jew I can possibly be, right? That is a strong thing in Judaism. That's a very strong thing in the Orthodox world. Right, and I'll even add to that, rabbis, and I'm saying this like non-judgmentally, even like I get it from where they're coming from, like their perspective, like for them to stick their neck out and to be different than all the other rabbis, in their kind of world. Imagine, I don't know, like take like 50 like black hat rabbis, and they come to a conference once or twice a year, and this guy's gonna order a vegan meal now. Like what? What are you talking about? He's got his black hat, he's got his suit, he's got his tie, he's like a huge Torah scholar, and he went vegan since last conference. What are you talking about? And I'll say this is actually not on my list, but it totally goes in here. And I've heard this very directly from people. People have kind of accused me of this. They say, if one of these rabbis is all of a sudden vegan, and he's sitting at a table with 10 other rabbis with their black hat, their suit, right? And he's eating vegan, and they're all eating the meat dish, what he's essentially saying is that that's not okay with Torah. Because everything I do, I think about Torah when I do it. Right? How I act, how I speak, what I do, what I wear, what I eat is all influenced by Torah. So here you have like this like Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox rabbi, all of a sudden vegan, he's basically saying, without even saying it, that what you guys are doing is wrong. Right? I'm doing it because I think the Torah says we should be vegan today because of all the pain and suffering out there, and you guys should too. So there's like a silent criticism happening, and there's a silent accusation that something about what they're doing is off with Torah, which is a huge thing to say about anything and to somebody. And I've sat at holiday meals. Like a couple years ago, this happened to me on Rosh Hashanah, where people got into a whole discussion with me. I was like the only vegan there out of 50 people. And, it was like a whole guy saying this place I go to, Uman, right? I think I've told you guys about it in the Ukraine. So it's like a whole bunch of guys in a house together in like the middle of like the Ukraine, and we're having like this holiday meal together, 50 of us, and I'm sitting there eating like my little vegan meal, right? And so guys started talking to me about it, which I'm always happy to talk about. And one of the guys said to me, he's like, "You're basically telling us that what we're doing is not okay. You're actually putting judgment on us." He said that to me, and he's a sweet guy. I know this guy for years. And I'm like I don't know. That doesn't really work for me in Judaism, because then what? We can't say ever that something is wrong, that something's not in line with Jewish values, because then you might feel accused by me or by my actions, or you might think I'm judging you, or might even he went to this level. You're bringing heavenly judgment upon us by doing that. That's what he said, actually. Right? You're bringing heavenly judgment on us. I'm not doing anything. I'm just having my little vegan meal over here. And you started a conversation with me. If anyone's bringing heavenly judgment on you, it's you. Don't blame me for your heavenly judgment, and I won't blame you for my heavenly judgment. Okay, deal? Shake hands. Good. Okay. Yofi. Right? But this is like a really big deal. This is like a really big deal. Okay? This is a really big deal in the Jewish world, in the Jewish world that I'm part of, specifically the Orthodox world. Super big deal. Okay? Let's keep going. Another classic, kind of answer, response to Judaism and veganism is, what about all the laws of Kashrut? There's so many laws that we're not going to follow anymore. What, you want us to not follow the Torah? You don't want us to keep Jewish law? Right? No meat, no milk, no all these things. What are you going to do about Kashrut? I love this one. I think it's like one of the easiest ones to answer, but that just to be with it for a little bit longer. It is a serious thing for people. People think because the laws of Kashrut are in the big book of Jewish laws means you have to keep them. And therefore, the only way I could separate between milk and meat is by eating meat, and then also eating milk, right? Having these both in my life, in my house, having meat dishes, dairy dishes, eating meat, waiting this amount of hours before I eat dairy. That's how we fulfilled the Torah. I'm keeping the Torah by doing that. No, you're not. You're not, because it's not an obligation. There's a big two-letter word in front of all those laws that nobody's talking about, and that's the word if. If you eat these foods, then you have to follow all of these laws. And if you don't, then go do something else with your time. Because you don't have to follow those laws, because you're not eating meat, you're not eating dairy, you're not eating eggs, you don't have to check for blood in the eggs, you don't have to do all these things. Yes, don't worry, there's plenty of other laws about kashrut that you will get to fulfill, like checking your rice for bugs and sifting your flour and all kinds of other great things and fun things, right? Don't worry, there's still leftover laws in the world of kashrut, even if you're vegan. But it's a big thing that people forget about, is those laws only need to be followed if you decide to eat those foods. It's a very unique thing in Jewish law, right? It's a very unique thing in Jewish law. It's we don't really see in other realms, at least not very easily. It's as if, like we have laws of lashon hara we've talked about, right? Not speaking gossip, not speaking badly about people, So you could just not talk, right? And then you will never speak lashon hara, right? But you're gonna talk because we're humans, and that's what we do, and we talk, right? So now that you're talking, you have to follow all of these laws, right? I'm using that as an example to show how it's very hard to find this kind of model in other areas of Jewish law and life. Okay, so the whole idea of like, oh, but we're going to be forgetting a whole part of the Torah. Well, first of all, we're not going to forget. It's written in like every Jewish law book that's ever been written. Okay, and second of all, it's only meant to be if you eat animals. And now that we're in this world, in this realm of all of this vegan food tech, where they're coming out with plant-based meats and plant-based dairy, and people are eating, yes, kosher keeping Jews are eating, either, animal hamburgers with vegan cheese on it, okay, or pizzas with vegan cheese and animal meat on it, or, right, the best, a plant-based burger with plant-based cheese on it, and it's okay. A generation ago, people would have flipped out about that. Like, oh my God, you can't do it because it looks like you're breaking the law. Now it's become so normal that no one's worried about it anymore. Right? And literally, it's kind of like in front of our eyes. I don't want to say the laws of kashrut are changing, but our relationship with them is. Because now a kosher keeping Jew could literally have a burger with cheese and doesn't have to keep any of these laws. You can have a plant-based burger that tastes like animal meat with plant-based cheese and love it, like, oh my God, this tastes just like the quote unquote real thing. And there was no slaughter involved. There was no checking the animals for sickness. There was no salting the meat to get rid of the blood. There's no waiting between eating meat and milk, however many hours you wait. All these laws are all of a sudden just not being kept. And it's okay. And it's fine, right? I'm being asked if I can repeat what you said about our relationship to kashrut. Yes. Because of the new world that we're living in and all these new food technologies, specifically vegan food technologies, our relationship with kashrut is changing, right? It's said there's a concept in kashrut called moras ayin, all right, which means, that even if, like this, I can't do something that I know is okay to do, but it looks like I'm doing something wrong, even if it's okay to do, but if other people observing me think that I'm doing something wrong and learn from that, and they do that something wrong as well, I'm not allowed to do it. That's called moras ayin. A classic example is, I don't know, well, there's a lot of classic examples. With food, a classic example 20, 30 years ago, even I think 10 years ago maybe, would be to have, to be a kosher keeping Jew, of a kippah on my head, and somebody else is eating a hamburger with vegan cheese on it. 10, 15 years ago, that would be not okay. Why? Because of moras ayin. Because here somebody sees an Orthodox Jew eating a cheeseburger. But cheeseburgers are like the classic thing you can't eat in Judaism. And so some other Jew who maybe isn't Orthodox, like, oh, I didn't realize that cheeseburgers are okay. And they see this Orthodox Jew eating a cheeseburger. I'm going to eat a cheeseburger as well. What he doesn't know is that the cheese is vegan. Right? And actually what this Orthodox Jew is doing is fine according to the laws of Kashrut. But now today, first of all, okay, so what does Jewish law say about that? If you're going to do that, you have to put some kind of sign or symbol on the table so people observing you know that you're actually not doing something wrong. You're not breaking something. So you can put the package of the vegan cheese. You can put a container of almond milk or something. It actually says that in Jewish law that if your almond milk shows up in Jewish law from many, many hundreds of years ago, that if you're drinking almond milk with meat, that could be perceived as milk and meat together, to show people that it's not cow milk, that it's not dairy milk. You have to put some almonds in the table to show people that the milk that you're drinking is almond milk. Right, back then they didn't have the containers to put on the thing. Right, so this is like a big deal in Jewish law, but today it's not such a big deal because people are used to it, and once people get used to it, then you can do it without any fear or concern, and that's what I mean by that. Our relationship with kashrut is changing, because now you can be an Orthodox Jew sitting out in public eating a cheeseburger, and everyone's going to know that either both things are plant-based, okay, the whole thing's vegan, or one of them is vegan and the other one is not, and there's no problem, because this guy would never do it otherwise, right? And then now it's just accepted. You don't have to put the almonds on the table or the almond box or whatever else, right? So that's what I mean by our relationship is changing, and it's going to change even more, right? As this vegan food tech takes off more and more. Just here in Israel, this vegan milk company, right? Not like oat milk or rice milk or almond milk, like vegan milk, right? They did like the whole science and fermentation thing to create vegan, non-dairy cow milk. I'm still looking into it to see, like, they might get the cells originally from cows, so it's not technically 100% vegan, but for the rest of the world, they're going to drink that instead of cow milk. Wow, a big wow, right? And it's hitting the cafes and restaurants already in Israel. People are ordering coffee with it already, and it's going to hit the retail stores next month here in Israel. I think it's going to be a huge deal, right? Huge deal. So that we're seeing things change. We're seeing things change literally before our eyes. Anyway, let's go back to the original question and a few more responses to it. Why more rabbis are not vegan? Okay, we talked about this, but we have to talk about it in this class because it's big, front and center. Shabbos, holidays, Rosh Hashanah, like we were saying before, like the brisket, the chicken soup, the gefilte fish. That's what we do. How can you not eat meat on Shabbos and holidays? We have to. It's an obligation. That's the one time, my friend, Mr. Vegan friend. That's when you have to eat it. That's when it's a mitzvah. Okay, I can understand, right? I can understand on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday, Thursday, Friday. It's not you don't need it. Judaism would never say you have to, but on Shabbos, on holidays, Yontiv, you have to. You have to. It's a mitzvah. You have to fulfill the mitzvah. And here, my friend, you're not doing a mitzvah. Maybe you got me with the whole kashrut thing, that it's only if you eat the meat. Okay, you got me. But here, no, I got you. Right? Because you have to eat it. It's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to eat meat on Shabbos. My rabbi told me. The books of Jewish law I've learned told me. It's written there. Right? So what are you going to say about that? Right? So first of all, let's just again pause with that and say that's like a common thought. Many Jews out there, many rabbis, especially in the Orthodox world, look at eating meat, eating animals as a mitzvah on Shabbos and on the holidays. Okay, so add them up. We're talking about, just doing quick math, we're talking about 70 days of the year. 70, 75 days of the year. They look at it as a mitzvah. That's about a fifth of the year, about 20% of the Jewish year. Okay? Do we just give in? Okay, you got me there. Okay, so we'll just talk about the 4/5 that when it's not? No. Even Shabbos, it's not an obligation. Don't use the word mitzvah. Use the word obligation. You can tell me that it's an obligation, meaning just like keeping Shabbat is an obligation. You're saying eating meat on Friday night is an obligation. Can you tell me that and believe what you say? No. They'll use the word mitzvah because that is the word that has gotten used. The word mitzvah, as we've said here before many times, has become kind of like a word that people use to, do me a mitzvah. Do me a mitzvah. Can you get me the salt? Sorry, my friend, getting you the salt is not a mitzvah. It's not. It's a nice thing. I'll get you the salt, no worries, but don't call it a mitzvah because it's not a mitzvah. We have 613 mitzvot. Right? And actually, most of them we can't even do anymore because they have to do with the temple, right? That one's in Jerusalem. But it's just become part of the Jewish thing, which again, fine, no problem, right? Do a mitzvah, I get it, do a nice deed. Mitzvah is kind of turned into like a nice deed or like a holy act or a certain kind of act. But no, if we want to go back to the roots of the word, and especially when we're dealing with what we eat on Shabbat and on holidays, and especially when we're dealing with Torah laws of animal welfare, Tzar B'alei Chaim, Ba Tashchit, and Shmirat HaGuf, right? Taking care of the environment and taking care of our health. We have to be very specific and we have to be very accurate, right? If you want to call it a mitzvah to eat meat on Shabbos, because that's what your community calls it, your rabbis call it, you call it, fine, but don't call it an obligation, right? Because it's not. It's not an obligation, right? Meat eating has never been an obligation outside the temple in Jerusalem. Right, with specific animal sacrifices. Okay, so that's just a very clear thing in Jewish law. All right, people get into, and this is not really on my list, but people, maybe I should actually. I'll add it, right, improv style. That people will say, no, but especially on Shabbat and holidays, we have the higher spiritual capability of elevating the sparks of the animal, elevating the soul of the animal, right? So me, just so you know, Akiva, I only eat meat on Shabbos and on holidays because I know that during the week, I can't really do that very intense and important spiritual work, right? Now, most people aren't like that. Most people will say on Shabbos and on holiday, I have more of a capability to elevate the animal, but I still eat it during the week, don't worry. I have my burgers and my hot dogs and my chicken wings whenever I want, right? I definitely have much more respect for people who say I don't eat animals during the week because I know I don't have the spiritual capability to do the spiritual elevation that I'm supposed to do. For that kind of person, and I've met people like that, I have greater respect. But if you're saying that the reason you're eating the animals on Shabbat and on the holidays is because, right, we have to elevate them spiritually. Now let's just pause here and say that is an idea in Judaism. Kabbalah talks about that. Jewish mysticism talks about that. That is a concept, right? And if anyone's into Judaism, mindful eating, conscious eating, spiritual eating, that's front and center. That's the main thing that guides. That's the main Jewish teaching that guides Jewish mindful, spiritual, conscious eating. But you don't have to eat animals to do that, right? We can elevate sparks in all kinds of food. When I eat an apple, I can elevate a spark. When I eat bread, I can elevate a spark. When I have rice pasta, with nutritional yeast and olive oil and garlic and tomatoes and basil, I can elevate the food. We're always capable of elevating food, okay? And the hardest thing to elevate is the animals. And that's what Kabbalah is very, very clear and very specific about that. So why do we need to elevate food? That's a great question. Okay? It's part of the spiritual fixing of the world, right? We're here to fix everything and to elevate everything. Elevate basically means like fix, right? It can be interchangeable, but it's this idea that like at the beginning of creation, all of these spiritual sparks were scattered throughout creation, reality, and our job through doing conscious deeds is to elevate those sparks, to lift them up literally and bring them back to their source. And when we do, right, we fix the world. It's through the unification, the reunification of these sparks that used to be all together and got broken away from each other and got scattered throughout creation. Right? So the spiritual side of pretty much everything we're doing in Judaism is spiritual elevation and unification. All right? And specifically with our food, right? Jewish mysticism talks about how through our eating we have the greatest capability of elevating sparks and fixing the world. But the truth is, and Kabbalah talks about this, that elevating the sparks within animals is the hardest thing to do. And you have to be on a high spiritual level to do that. So my friend who, says to me, yeah, I'm eating meat on Shabbos because I can, because that's the day that I can. I wonder, I don't really say this to him, I just think in my head, are you really on the level? Are you really on the level to do that? Who's on the level? It seems like there's a lot of people on the level. But are all these people on the level to do that spiritual fixing of these animals? And one more thing I'll say, and then Viv, I know you want to say something, is there's so much pain and suffering that these animals go through to get to your plate so that you can have the opportunity to spiritually elevate it. So you're telling me those few moments of you eating that animal on your plate on that one Shabbos was worth all that pain and suffering that animal went through? Can you tell me yes to that question? That it was worth it? If you do say yes, and I don't even know how to respond because I don't understand that perspective. If you say no, which I hope you say, now there's something to think about. We're living in a different world. We're living in a radically different world. That chicken soup of today, or the chicken soup of today, is not the same chicken soup of our grandparents. The chickens, right, that were used to make that chicken soup lived very, very different lives. Very different lives. Back then, as compared to how they live today. It's not the same chicken soup. So spiritual elevation on the backs, literally, of chickens and all these animals that God created, I don't know. If we could ask God, what would God say? I don't know. You don't know. We can really never know because we don't have that kind of communication with God. All we can do is guess. So my guess is going to be like, nah, leave the chicken soup aside, right? If that's how you're getting the chicken soup with all that pain and suffering to my creatures, right? I prefer you not eat the chicken soup. Have some lentil soup. Have some yummy potato leek soup. There's so many great soups out there that don't eat chickens. Okay. But did you want to say something or did you want to write something? Either way is fine.
I wrote it. If you turn off your audio, then it won't double back.
Wait, hold on 1 second.
I think that's how it worked last time.
Oh, like when you speak, you mean? Okay, hold on. I'm going to pause myself. I'll mute myself. Go for it.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. That's why I sent it. But the rabbi that we had on, I won't say his name, just in case. Do you remember the rabbi that we had on whose dad you knew? Right? So I wrote him something and he wrote me back. And he's not even vegan, but he seems to be sending me all these things that can help me speak to rabbis who aren't vegan. But he said a mitzvah cannot be done through an avera or avera. I'm not sure the pronunciation. You cannot steal money to give to the poor. You cannot elevate animals by consuming meat that was raised in a brutally cruel environment. That's what he sent to me as a response to something. That's all I wanted to say.
Amazing. Thank you. That strengthens it even more. Beautiful. Perfect. Thank you. Exactly. There's this concept in Judaism that you cannot do a mitzvah through breaking a law. And a vera is breaking the law, right? So exactly, you can't steal someone's lulav and then go shake it and like, oh, I'm so holy, I'm shaking the lulav. Exactly. So and beautiful that he shared it in this context. 100%, amazing, very good. A couple more responses to this question: why more rabbis are not vegan? Let me just go down my list, make sure. Um, okay, another one I think still exists. It exists less, but it still does exist, and that's just straight up ignorance of how much suffering animals really are going through in the kosher meat industry. Or they think, oh, but are you kosher? Kosher is better. Kosher is divine. Kosher is godly. It doesn't happen in the kosher industry. Yes, it does. And when you try to tell them, or when you do tell them, and they're open to hearing, they're kind of like stunned. They're like, that also happens to kosher meat. They don't realize how similar and even intertwined the non-kosher and kosher meat industries are. Okay? How intertwined they are. And so the animals that become kosher meat are treated just as cruelly and just as poorly and just as horribly and horrifically as in the non-kosher world. But let's go back to the first thing I said in terms of the ignorance. Some people are still ignorant. They still don't know, right? And then we can say there's so many YouTube videos and so many documentaries. How can you not know? Well, take your like Orthodox rabbi living in an Orthodox town who doesn't watch YouTube and doesn't watch anything on screens. He's never seen this stuff. Nobody around him is talking about this stuff. He's talking about Torah all day long. How is he going to know about this stuff? Right? And that's why it was so powerful when I shared last week about this rabbi in Israel who I just found out is vegan, an Orthodox rabbi, an ultra-Orthodox rabbi. When he found out, he was stunned. He was floored. He couldn't believe it. You can hear it in his voice, right? I told you guys I heard the recording, the audio recording of an interview somebody did with him, and then when they basically told him, and he was shocked. He couldn't believe that people are enjoying themselves, right? Getting enjoyment on the backs, literally, of animals, right? As a result of the pain and suffering. But there still is ignorance, right? And therefore it means even more so, like the importance of education, right? There's not a lot of Orthodox vegan rabbis out there, right? There's definitely a lot more non-Orthodox vegan rabbis, which I think that's why it's even more important for Orthodox vegan rabbis to talk about this with other Orthodox Jews to spread that information. Now, there's definitely sectors of the Orthodox world that do watch YouTube and Netflix and all these things, and they've heard about these documentaries. But as you go more ultra, it gets less and less. And to get in there, that's more difficult. To get in there, that's more difficult, right? But it needs to get there, and it is getting there because, again, as I've shared, I've been hearing more and more about members and even rabbis of the ultra Orthodox community who are changing the way they eat because of the pain and suffering that's happening to animals in the kosher meat industry. So that's amazing. So ignorance, that's almost like something easier to deal with on some level. Right? It's like education. They got to tell them, they got to know, and hopefully once they know, then they'll like be, whoa, I can't believe that. But how do you get there? How do you like reach those people when those worlds are so different, so separate, so far apart? That's the challenge. But again, just to still understand, they think that their chicken soup that they're eating today is just like their bubby's chicken soup from 80 years ago, and her bubby's from 80 years before, and her bubby's going back. They don't realize, how could it be different? It looks exactly the same. I might have shared this story once, here, but when one year after college, I lived across the street from my grandparents. At the beginning of the year, unfortunately, my grandfather died. He was 92, but my grandmother lived for many more years, and I sat with her a lot, just talking to her about her life in general, specifically in Poland. She lived in a little shtetl in Poland for the first 20-something years of her life, and I asked her all kinds of questions about shtetl life. And one day, I was already vegan by that point. I asked her about veal, did you guys eat veal? She said, yeah. I'm like, how did you get veal? She's like, we just took the smallest calf that was running around the farm in the fields and, brought it to the shochet, to the slaughter, and that was our veal. And it was like one of these moments, I don't even know how to tell her what veal is today. How to explain the whole situation of veal today. She won't even believe me. She won't even be able to picture it. It was just so quick in 2 generations how quickly things have changed, right? And we need to spread that education and that information, right, and get rid of that ignorance. All right, going on to 1 or 2 more things. Yeah, they're kind of like two sides of the same coin, but this idea of like, I don't have to. Where does it say I have to be vegan? Epo katuv? Can you show me a pasuk from the Torah that I have to be vegan? Hashem says to Moshe, you got to be vegan. No, it doesn't say anything. Mapitom. Right? The big rabbis of 500 years ago, did they talk about veganism? No, mapitom. Right? They don't have to be vegan. Don't tell me I have to be vegan. There's enough things I have to do. Right? Vegan is not one of them. And that's like a real thing, right? It's like there's no feeling that you have to, so you don't. I do what I have to do. And I get that. I'll be honest with you. I get that, especially from the Orthodox perspective. I have so many things I have to do. I wake up in the morning, I have to do like 5 things in the next 17 seconds. Like you're going to add veganism onto my plate? By the time it's like 2 hours into the day, I've just done like so many obligations. And now you're going to tell me what I can eat for breakfast? It's kosher. That's enough. That's a big thing. It's enough that it's kosher. That's what I have to do. Keep it kosher. Now you have to say I have to be vegan and kosher? Right? What are you talking about? So there is this idea, right? There's no feeling that you have to, so you don't. I do what I have to do, right? Anything else I'm allowed to do. If I'm allowed to eat meat, Judaism says I'm allowed to eat meat, I'm going to eat meat. I don't have to bring a new obligation into my life. I have plenty of them. Right? I'm not going to like rewrite Judaism. I'm not going to add new mitzvahs into my life, right? And so that's where it comes into the whole explanation, obviously. Like, no, you're not adding anything new. You're now just fulfilling the mitzvah of not causing pain and suffering to animals in a way that our ancestors barely had to think about. For them, the mitzvah of Tzar B'alei Chayim was like, don't put too much weight on the donkey's back. Or a donkey falls down because somebody did put too much weight, help the donkey up. Or don't plow 2 animals together. All these things that are written in the Torah. For thousands of years, what exists in our generation, in our reality, didn't exist. So the Torah doesn't talk about it in that language, but the law is still there. Tzar B'alei Chayim. Right now, animals are going through way more pain and suffering than they ever did in the past, in general, right? Specifically in the Jewish world. So yeah, you might not have to. It doesn't say you have to be vegan, but you do have to. I'm sorry, you do have to keep this mitzvah of Tzar B'alei Chayim. And if that food that you're eating or want to eat right now came from an industry that caused unbelievable pain and suffering to animals from the moment that they were born to the moment that they were killed, you gotta wonder if that's in line with Judaism, right? But again, going back, right, holding that space of what someone's thinking, right, what the rabbi is thinking, we don't have to. There's no obligation, so I'm not going to. I have enough obligations in my life. Thank you. Okay, that's like a real thing, especially in the Orthodox world. And the last thing, not the end all be all, right? There's probably more, but just for this class at least. And we kind of talked about this as well, but I just want to kind of give a bit more attention to it. Is the risk of change, of changing the status quo, and the risk of challenging the status quo is really big in the Jewish world. Again, I keep saying this, but especially in the Orthodox world, right? Imagine like a rabbi has got like, I don't know, 300-400, families, like a big congregation, nice salary, got the house, got the car, no, but it's got like a good job, a good life, loves what he does. He's a community leader, and now all of a sudden he went vegan. What are his community members going to say? It's going to be kind of like what we were talking about before. Like, what now? Is my rabbi judging me? I don't know. When his contract's up in 2 years, I'm not sure if I'm going to vote for him anymore, right? Like, and the contract will come up. That's what happens, right? It's not like a forever contract, right? Now he's vegan and like he's not eating the cholent at Kiddush. We used to like love that cholent together. That was our like bonding moment on Shabbos morning. How good the cholent was, right? And the chunks of beef he took out and put on his plate, right? Obviously, I'm being a little bit, whatever here, but that idea of appearing to be a challenge to the status quo and to the way that the community does things is a big risk for rabbis to stick their neck out. Not a simple thing. And I'm saying that with compassion. I get it. It's not a simple thing. And at the same time, two realities can exist at the same time. Rabbis are supposed to be like a lighthouse for their community. They're supposed to show the way. They're supposed to impact and influence and inspire. And yeah, if they learn that, oh my God, I can't believe what I didn't know all these years, and now I know, and now I'm vegan, share that with your community. in the way that you know how to, in a way that's not going to feel judgmental. It's not going to feel judgy, right? But it's going to lift them up. You can say in your, Shabbos Devar Torah speech, look, this is me. This is what I'm doing now. I just want you to know. I'm not here to judge anybody. I'm not going to judge anybody. I don't want to judge anybody. But just so you know, I did make a change in my life, and here are the reasons why. If you ever want to talk to me about it, you know where you can find me, right? Doesn't have to be this whole like, oh my God, the rabbi is against us now, this and that, right? But again, I think it's very important to understand that and all of these kind of responses and reasons why more rabbis are not vegan. It's really important for us to understand them. Why? Because then we can be more compassionate. We can understand their perspective, and we can help them, right? We can help them understand. Right? Knowing that it's not easy for them, for all of these reasons that we just listed, right? Will make that conversation more pleasant, less judgy, more open, more understanding, more sympathetic, more empathetic, whatever the word is, right? A better quality conversation where they have more of a chance of hearing what we're saying, right? So, it's kind of like Hillel and Shammai, right? They say the students of Hillel and the students of Shammai, they argue about almost everything, but almost always the halacha, the Jewish law goes like the house of Hillel. Why? Because whenever they were arguing, they would always state the argument of the house of Shammai first, and then their own, right? Showing that I hear your perspective, I see how you see things, but this is how I see things. And that creates like a whole nother relationship and a whole nother understanding. We need to be like the house of Hillel. Understand that perspective, get it. Know that it's hard, it's not easy. I get you. Wow, that must be really hard, right? I'd love to talk to you about it, right? So yeah, I hope that all this can transform into advice and into ways and new ways of having conversations with people in the Jewish world, rabbis, rabbinic leaders, community leaders, and really all coming from a place of understanding, of love, of compassion, of non-judgmentalness, in a way, right, that keeps that mission and that vision that we talk about all the time alive. Like we're not doing this really for them. We're not doing this for us. We're doing this for the animals, and really we're doing this for the mission and the vision of Judaism and for the world, right? To really bring godliness and godly light and goodness and kindness and compassion and justice into the world for all creatures and for all of creation, right? And if we can hold on to that covenant, that intention, I think we'll be really blessed with a lot of successful conversations. Thank you, everybody. I felt like this was a really important class, and I'm so glad we had it. All right. Any questions, reflections afterwards, WhatsApp me, email me, put it in the Facebook group, in our WhatsApp group, anything. Let's keep this conversation as much as it needs to keep on going. And may we all be blessed with really meaningful and inspiring conversations with people about all of this. All the best, my friends, and have a great week. Shavua Tov.